Hello and welcome to a special edition of FVTV. I'm Thomas Parker, and as you can see from the bottles surrounding me, I'm not actually going to be talking about just one wine or producer today. What I've got actually is just some of the wines that I've been tasting both alone and with the Farr team over the last week or so for the 29 vintage of Bordeaux, which is the new vintage that's being released En Primeur as we speak. At the end of May, we decided that it would be best if we try to get as many samples as we can and taste in safe conditions in London and get an idea of the vintage so that we can give you some frank advice on what these wines are going to be like. We've now tasted over 150 samples from Bordeaux, right across the region, right up to the top quality levels. We've tasted some first growths and all the way through to some of the Cru Bourgeois and cheaper wines that we're able to offer that will offer some great value for money this year. What we can see from all the wines that we've now tasted is that this is a very good vintage. There are some great wines as well to be had in 2019. It's probably a step behind the sort of greatest vintages, the 2009, 2010 and 2016, but it's certainly on a par in the Medoc with 2015 and 2018 and is better in parts than both of those vintages. So it is a very good vintage, and I think we've seen from early critical review as well, some wines are getting potential 100-point scores. So there are some really fantastic wines to be had out there. That being said, obviously in such difficult economic circumstances with such uncertainty, we are expecting prices to be reduced. Pontet Canet led the way with that, certainly by being an early releaser and reducing their price by over 30%. I think if Chateau were going to do that for the most part, there are really going to be some bargains to be had in this vintage, and something of Bordeaux giving back to customers after some of the advantages of En Primeur have been reduced over recent years. We should start to see some sort of spark and momentum for buying En Primeur again if the prices are right. 2019 started with quite a mild winter and a precocious growing season. After that, what happened was effectively quite a dry and warm summer. I mean, in places there were severe heat spikes. There were 2 sets of heat waves. Chateau La Conseillante talk about over 9 days with an average temperature of over 35 degrees C, which gives you an idea of just how hot July and parts of August were. There were cooler nights in August though, so that helped to keep the vines a little bit fresher and also allow the vines to keep progressing, because if it gets too hot, the vines shut down and nothing moves forward. And then luckily as well, in September there were some light rains, sort of mid to late September, which just refreshed the vines, brought down the alcohol levels because it was looking like it was going to be a very hot vintage. But those rains sort of helped to soften the skins, reduce the sugar levels in the grapes, and bring this sort of freshness that we weren't expecting before those rains. So from the wines themselves that we've tasted, the style is difficult to pin down. It's not like any other vintage that we've tasted before, but if you were trying to amalgamate some vintages to get an idea of what these wines are like, I think some wines have a fruit ripeness that's akin to maybe a 15 or maybe an 18, not quite as bold and sort of glossy as those vintages, but there is that level of ripeness. It's very hard to find any wines which have a green edge to them or seem underripe or stalky. That being said, the alcohols are lower than 2018, so there's an added bit of freshness, and that's part of these wines' real charm, is that they have a freshness and a structure that's slightly closer to a 2016 vintage or maybe a 2010. We've loved things like Chateau Lange-Barge was fantastic. If you're looking for value, Les Cruzel and La Lande de Pomerol was probably the pick of the wines that are going to be under £250 a case. That was just absolutely fantastic. We've got a much more detailed report than what I've been able to go through here now live on the website. So as always, I will direct you for the best bit of information to farvintners.com. Until next time.